10, 12, 15 people all come together in a small format kind of design. We spend 2.5 days together. It's a +1 event. We talk about things that organizations are doing well and things that organizations are struggling with. And at the same time, those CxOs in the room build a relationship with each other. They build a relationship with the partners who are in attendance.
Welcome to the Risk Never Sleeps podcast, in which we learn about the people that are on the front lines delivering and protecting patient care. I'm Ed Gaudet, the host of our program, and today I am pleased and honored to be joined by my good friend, Drex DeFord, the president of 229 Risk and Security at This Week Health.
It's a mouthful.
Welcome, Drex. I know. Easy for me to say.
Yeah, thanks. See, and we were talking about this earlier, but it's the whole, when you can't get it right, there's usually a lot of curse words that kind of fly out of your mouth. And so that then all has to be edited. So.
I'm too old to worry about getting it right.
It's good to see you. I'm glad. Thanks for having me on. I'm honored to be on. It's we've done this once before, I think.
We did. You know, and I went back and I read your bio for the first time.
Oh,
yeah. Which I know we talked about it last time, but I really love this. We have a lot in common. First of all, you're a farm kid from Indiana.
Yeah.
And I'm a farm kid from Plantsville, Connecticut.
Plantsville. I'm from Plainville, Indiana.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, look at that. And there is a Plainville a couple towns over from me, but you look at that. See?
Yeah.
Crazy. You had no money for college. I had no money for college.
I feel like this is a... You can go ahead.
You enlisted in the Air Force. I went in the Army.
You know what they say about the Army?
What's that?
Well, what they say about the Air Force, it's like the Army only for smart people.
Oh, is that right? I don't know about that. I was in the field artillery, so not a lot of
so you were at Fort Sill. Did you go to Fort Sill to field artillery school? Yeah.
I did go. Lawton, Oklahoma.
I did the
God's country.
I did the Army Expert Field Medical Badge with the Army at Fort Sill at the Field Artillery School.
What years?
When? Oh, gosh. This would have been
88, 89?
It probably would have been in the 90s sometime. Yeah. But there were only a few Air Force medics who wore that. And it was more of a, I was in Wichita Falls. I was in Wichita Falls, Texas at the time at Shepherd Air Force Base, and Fort Sill wasn't far away. And so it was one of those things like, a thing that would be interesting to do. Go take the EFMB test.
Did you ever get to Mount Scott?
I did. Oh yeah, for sure. Me too. Definitely run up Mount Scott one time or another.
It's a cool little hill.
Yeah.
But it's like,
it's a mountain on that flat part of the country. It's definitely a mountain.
Yeah. Impressive. You did Desert Shield and Storm.
Yeah.
And you were shot at and they missed. Thank God.
Thank God.
Yeah. I was almost going to the first was Desert Shield, I guess it was, in 1991. And I was on a round out battalion for the 10th Mountain Division. We were ready to go. And then, do you remember the war just ended? Like
it went really fast. It was a giant, huge buildup. And then literally, it was an air war, and the tanks rolled in and kind of just had their way. And that was it. It was quick. It was done.
It was quick. All wars should be quick.
Yeah.
If we have to have wars, I prefer no wars.
Agree.
I'm a poet, Drex, so I prefer love and peace and harmony, not war. Which is why I'm in healthcare.
Yeah. Right.
It's the closest industry to poetry there is, I think.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot going on in healthcare that you don't get in other. First of all, you have that shared mission that you don't find in other industries.
It's true. I think a lot of people are in the industry because of the mission. And, if you work in a hospital, you see it every day. If you've worked in the hospitals, it's definitely a thing that sticks with you over the course of the rest of your career. So it's a great mission. I love it.
It's certainly not the pay. Right?
There are bigger, more exciting places to go if pay is your motivation.
Exactly.
Doing good is a great thing to have as a mission.
Absolutely. The other thing too is just about anyone in your family, no matter what you do, can understand what you do. It's unlike any other industry I've worked in. Whereas they never understood what I did. When I went to healthcare, all of a sudden, oh yeah, no, I get it. Because everyone's a patient. Everyone's been a patient. Everyone knows patients. Everyone's seen healthcare at its finest.
It is one of those things where we're all going to become our own customer at some point. And part of the reason for doing what we're doing and making it, better, faster, cheaper, safer, easier to access is because at some point I'm going to need to use it, and I need it to be better than it is today.
Yeah. So we're all going to be customers of AI at some point. So that's
AI.
You're going to have this little tube that you walk into. It's going to do a full body scan.
It's very Star Trek.
Exactly. It's going to inject you based on what you need. It's going to take the tests, whatever, if it needs tests. And you're going to walk out of there and you're going to be fine.
Okay.
You'll live to 200 years old. The question is, will we see it in our lifetime? Probably not.
Yeah. It's a work in progress. That's for sure. And AI has kind of accelerated everything. So
AI is everything.
It's a great time to be around. I mean, it's a great time to be involved in all of this because you get to see from, for us at our particular age-ish, I'll kind of put us in the same general category. But we've got to
live through. I mean, we lived through the advent of computers.
Yeah.
The web, the internet.
That's what I was going to say. We got to see it from like the very, very beginning to where we are today. It's been a crazy ride since, for me, probably started in the early 80s, like just incredible.
Since Atari 2600 Pong.
The Commodore 64. I think probably is where I started.
Nice. Look at you. Shut up. I had one of the first compact 386s, the sewing machines. You remember those things?
Yeah. Yeah.
I worked at I've done startups all my career, so I had this luxury. And I didn't realize what I was doing when I was doing it, but I had the best and the earliest technologies. We had this thing called a tadpole. Do you remember a tadpole? Many people don't remember. It was like this brick running a Solaris, and it had it had MIPS back then. When MIPS were the, were the compute power that everyone talked about.
I feel like I've heard of it, but I don't know that I know it.
It was great. It was like this massive, thick laptop that just screamed power. The tadpole, which is kind of a stupid, insignificant name for this thing.
I can't even imagine how much storage it didn't have, how much disk space it probably didn't have.
Your phone. Where's my phone?
Oh,
this has more than that ever.
For sure. So I was reading, somebody was writing something. This is like, I don't know how many more times powerful than like the computers that we used to send the Apollo rockets to the moon.
Exactly.
Amazing how far we've come.
Yeah. Back then we were doing integration with VAX VMS. Remember the DEC, digital equipment?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And the VAX. And they had a thing called DEC Mail. And we were putting DEC Mail, a little client on this thing, this French small PDA called the Pocket or Pocket, basically. And this was in 1991. And doing literally mail on this little device. If I only knew what I know now back then.
You could have got into that business early.
No idea. Right.
I think the major fail for me was, using the internet early on and being a beta tester for the Mosaic browser.
Yes.
And realizing that there were domain names, but not buying all of them. We may have talked about this before, but I was just talking to someone this weekend about that, about how people sit on, because most people don't know that there's this whole industry of squatters. Oh yeah.
Sit on these names and just wait.
Yeah. Somebody eventually is going to want this. That's why any company that you see that comes out today has some name that is like a collection of letters and numbers and doesn't make sense because that's the only domain name they could find. So they had to come up with
some obscure Hawaiian name for bowl or something.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, that's so true. It's so true. And it's amazing how many, names are being squatted. I wonder how many there are. That would be an interesting thing to ask ChatGPT.
They had more and more extensions over time. Now we have AI, so that was a whole thing right there. .ai you could have gone out and.
Well, you have IO, right?
I have IO, yeah. Drex IO is, and this was, that was one of those weird. When I became an independent consultant, I knew I had to set up an LLC, so I had to give the company a name, and so I went out and looked, and the .io Drex.io was available, and then I in a conversation with my daughter, she's not a little kid, she's a big kid now, but I told her, so Drexio is going to be the name of the company. And she was like, oh, Drexio, like Cheerio. That'll be perfect. And that I was like, okay, that's some kind of a sign. Because she was always the kid that had like a Cheerio stuck to her face.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Little, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think I might have one stuck to my arm. It's fun. I love Cheerios.
Yeah.
I love cereal. I was a kid that would read the cereal boxes end to end. Did you read cereal boxes when you were a kid?
Sure. And it was like, vinyl albums, the fold out albums, and you could just spend hours reading the liners and the
liner note. Yeah. Just that was what was so interesting when things moved to CD. It took me a while to get there because you had such a relationship with the album. That's why I still buy books. I have a Kindle, but I have 1, 2, 3 books a week coming to the house from Amazon.com. I still read physical books. I don't know what it is, that relationship you have with the book.
There are books. So obviously I have some books behind me, but there are books. I usually will start with Audible. And so there are books that I will listen to on Audible. And then sometimes for some of those books, it becomes clear that there are things in that book that are whatever charts and graphs or something that I actually need to see.
Exactly.
And so I'll actually buy the physical book because I just need to see whatever the data visualization is that the person's trying to describe that they're failing at. So, yeah.
Well, it's the same with the Kindle. It's the same thing. You get these, like, I want to see it in print.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something about a lot of notes in the margins or whatever, you start with a book and then you put a bunch of notes in there and then it's your book. So,
well, it's funny you say that. If you go to my library, you pull out books, there's a high probability that in the margin are poems I wrote. So I have all these books with just poems that.
So you weren't kidding when you said that.
No, I am. I just had I had 3 more poems accepted by journals. And one journal actually took 3 poems. So I've had 5 poems accepted in the last.
Are these like poetry journals or is this other? Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Poetry journals. So now I'm up to like 9 or so. Accepted. Yeah. And I started last year because I'd like to publish a book or two.
That's what I mean. You're like 650 short of a book, but you're well on.
Oh, no. I've got thousands of poems.
Okay.
No, but the trick is you have to have, so if you have a 50, 60 page book of poems, you have to have some percentage, usually 10 to 12, that have been picked up by and validated by third-party journals.
Oh, they want to see that.
They want to see, this isn't garbage or whatever.
You've been published somewhere else. Maybe you have a following of somebody that will come and buy the book.
They could. Well, I'm sure you'll buy my book.
Of course. And not just the audiobook, no matter how svelte your voice is, how groovy your voice is.
We were talking about our voices earlier.
I'll have to pick up the book.
I'm going to say what I said earlier before we were recording. I think our voices might be the sexiest voices in cyber today.
I don't know if there's a competition.
There really isn't. I mean, we could get Wes on here. Maybe that could just add a little more.
It feels like there could be some kind of a story that comes out of one of the healthcare trade publications that says 25 podcast voices you should know, or something like that, right?
Some of those podcast voices in healthcare.
Yeah, there you go.
That's it. That's the article. We better be up on that list.
You got to click that. You got to click that article so that they get the credit for it in all of the counting system there, and then you get to read all this stuff.
That's right. That's right. What's that guy's name? Rogan? What's his name?
Joe Rogan? Yeah. Not a healthcare podcast.
He's got nothing on us. He's got nothing on us. That's funny. So tell us about the 229. I know a lot of people know about this, but how did it come about and what are you working on?
Yeah, sure. It's so it's interesting. Bill Russell and I have known each other for a number of years. I'm a longtime healthcare CIO. He was the CIO at St. Joe. I became an independent consultant around the same time he became an independent consultant. So we knew each other as CIOs, and we continued to sort of be really friendly and talk a lot as we started on that independent consulting journey. And at some point, he started doing a podcast because he thought it would get more business for the independent consulting and coaching work that he did. And obviously it turned out that the podcast was the thing.
Right.
And so he continued down that path. I was always a guest or a regular guest on the show, and I was on his advisory board. And we always had sort of joked around that it would be great if at some point we were able to work together. And that's finally happened now. The 229 reference is for February 29th, 2020. And it's really tied to...
What happened during that time?
Something very important happened.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, the first reported case of COVID to the CDC. Mm-hmm. And Bill called me, and, I called Bill, about the same time, because we were both getting a lot of calls from a lot of CxOs asking us if we could introduce them to other CxOs. Hey, I hear they have a cool drive-through testing program at XYZ Healthcare. Can you introduce me to, Joe Smith or whoever, right? And I think we both sort of had at the same time logically, you should know that person. I've seen you both at the same conference at the same time. You have to know that person. And the reality was, the feedback we got was we've been at the same conferences. We're maybe kind of acquaintances. I've seen that person on stage, but I don't really know them. I don't have really their contact information. Can you introduce me? So of course, we introduced them, but it caused Bill and I to sort of start this conversation around the conference. We have some kind of a problem here because these people should actually know each other and have relationships, and they don't.
Right.
And that turned into the 229 events, the summits that we hold today. 15 people, 10, 12, 15 people all come together in a small format kind of design. We spend 2.5 days together. It's a +1 event. We talk about things that organizations are doing well and things that organizations are struggling with. And at the same time, those CxOs in the room build a relationship with each other. They build a relationship with the partners who are in attendance. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, we just did one in Naples, Florida last week. We're doing Austin this week. And the reviews are rave reviews. I personally was also a sponsor when I was at CrowdStrike. So I've seen it from the development of the idea. I've seen it from the sponsor partner side of the fence, and now I'm seeing it, on the inside, and it's just a great experience. I've never seen anything like it, and people literally leave with each other's phone numbers, and awesome. The CISO events that I've done, they've asked me to set up signal groups so that they can continue to sort of stay in touch and work on things together, and so it's really terrific. Really cool. And now we've started these city tours. So we've gone to 2 cities. We'll go to 6 more this year and probably a bunch more next year. And those are just dinner events at night, and kind of the compressed version of the summits, kind of just in one evening. It's fun to see. Go to places like Philadelphia and really kind of see how everybody is connected and is coming together there. And we're going to see this across a lot of other cities too. So
that's so cool. Yeah. And I know there's a cone of silence during the 2 days. but what can you share with listeners, like key takeaways from the most recent one?
Yeah, I think there's kind of an ongoing. So I look for consistencies and the like, here's what we're doing real well, or here's where we have challenges, or when somebody will come up with, somebody will start to talk about one of their challenges, and a lot of other folks can relate to that. Mm-hmm. A lot of my work as an independent consultant was around governance too. And it turns out that sort of like governance and the challenges with prioritization and funding things that are important and not being distracted by a lot of other things that sort of pile on and don't really go through the governance process. That's consistently a real challenge, I think, in healthcare. And it creates, from a cybersecurity perspective, it creates some real challenges too, right? Because we have to run current operations and we have to do the approved projects and support those. And then there's all these other things that somehow don't go through the process, even if there is a process in some health systems, don't go through the process and still are drawing resources away from the work that we need to be doing to make sure that we're safe and secure and able to operate and have uptime and be resilient and all the things we talk about. So.
No, that's a great point. And I think, with 2.0 of NIST CSF, governance is now getting, obviously, it's become a first class citizen from a functional area. And I'm sure that is also driving a lot of interest in this, as well as AI. I mean, the only way to really deal with the plethora of internal requirements and requests is to structure it from a governance perspective and cross-functionally. It can't be cyber taking the brunt of it. It has to be cross-functional.
Yeah. I mean, I think you've heard me say this before, and it's kind of like it's a platitude, but I actually mean it when I say it. Everything's connected to everything else. And so in grad school, I started using this Maslow's hierarchy of needs for healthcare information technology model. And I wound up using it at one of my regions. And then I wound up using it at the Air Force Medical Service, worldwide level when I was chief technology officer. And it was this idea that you can do all the cool stuff you want at the pinnacle of this, Maslow's hierarchy of need pyramid. But if you don't have the stuff at the bottom settled and squared away and refreshed regularly, and you don't have that locked down tight, you're kind of building a house on a foundation of sand. It's going to crack, it's going to fall down. And so when I look at AI, there's a lot of investment. There's a lot of money going into AI from a lot of health systems. And at the same time, I have to ask, are we sure we have the base of the pyramid squared away? Because it's fun and interesting and cool to spend money on all those cool, sexy things at the top of the pyramid. And all this other stuff should just be, doesn't it just work now? Like, do we have to keep investing money in it? And the answer is, yeah, you have to keep investing money in it because the bad guys continue to get better and improve and use AI to do that. The tools that we have continue to either age out or they're improved. And so we have to stay on top of that. There's just the education that goes along with all of that. And the reality that we don't have enough people to do the work that we're being asked to do. And then new regulations and now the organization wants to do M&A. Well, one of the things that happens in M&A is that when you acquire a new hospital, part of the reason that you can probably acquire that hospital is that there's not been a huge amount of investment in that hospital over time. So that's going to be a massive project in and of itself. And again, a lot of this just goes to that foundation of the pyramid. You got to keep that squared away. Of course, you have to invest in some new cool things, but priorities and balance. And that's the governance conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. In that technology harmonization is so critical when you're integrating.
Simplification is easier to secure, right? I mean, a simplified environment is easier to secure. So whether it's application, rationalization or, just deciding that we're going to have infrastructure that's only from 3 different vendors instead of 23 different vendors. I mean, those kinds of things, as you can simplify that environment, it's fewer patches to worry about. It's easier to secure. It's easier to manage the exceptions. Because everything in the environment is an exception, which is some of the environments that I think healthcare organizations are working in today.
But don't go too far over, because as we learned with Change Health,
For sure.
you got to have the right distribution of technology to business process to potential impact, because you don't want to create another systemic risk.
Yeah. All your eggs in one basket also can be dangerous. And so, yeah, I mean, I think you have to be paranoid about any decision that you make and what's your plan B for that, and maybe what's your plan C and what's your plan D for that decision. It's just being a good, responsible healthcare executive today means that nothing's ever done. Whatever the decision is that you've made, that was a good decision at the time. There's probably a more optimal decision to be made in the future. And then that, again, back to the governance process. Right. This all becomes part of that conversation about when and how do we change past decisions that we've made to make them better. And that's also kind of a real problem I think I see in healthcare now sometimes too, is that people make decisions, they implement the project, and then they almost take offense that 5 years later, somebody would question that decision, right? And it's like, that was a perfectly fine decision 5 years ago, but the world has changed and we probably need to revisit whatever that is. So
no, that's a great point. Yeah, it is constantly changing. You have to be flexible. You can't dig in, because the decision you made yesterday may change, in 3 weeks, 3 years, 3 months. I don't know. Yeah. Which is why I love what I do, especially for someone with ADHD, right? It keeps it interesting, doesn't it?
There's definitely a new thing every moment.
Yeah. So speaking of regulations, did you see the White House announcement today?
I did. I mean, I think it's a good summary of all the things that that have happened. So I breezed through it very quickly. Is there anything new in there that I didn't know about?
Yeah. So Microsoft and Google.
Oh, I saw that part too.
Yeah. With free, no cost.
What's that mean?
I don't know. And it seems to be disclaimed. Yes. Well, if you do this and if you do this, we'll give you this.
Yeah.
So I think the point is, and I think it's a good one. I actually posted it on LinkedIn after the announcement. I think as an industry, along with the shared mission, you have to sort of put your money where your mouth is. And I think this is a call out to all vendors. Figure out what you can give back to the industry. And it can be a little, it doesn't have to be a lot, but everyone should do it. It's a call to arms. Everyone should look at what they have and really try to balance profit with philanthropic concerns and initiatives, and try to give back, whether it's your time or your people's time or some access to your software or services, whatever it is, right? People should be doing that. And if everyone started doing that, we'd be in a much better place. So this is Google and Microsoft doing that at some level. We've been doing it for 3+ years with the American Hospital Association. We think it's the right thing to do. And I wish more vendors did it.
You're doing it personally too, though, like with Health Sector Coordinating Council and other things too. I mean, we both are part of that. I think it does, again, kind of boil down to you just want to try to make the organization, you would try to make the industry better. You try to make your organization and other organizations better. And I mean, it's kind of built into us. If you're in healthcare, it's kind of, for a lot of us, it's just in our DNA. We can't help ourselves but to volunteer and help.
Absolutely. Imagine if your mother, father, sister, brother, cousin, aunt, uncle, friend is hooked up to one of the devices or on their way to a hospital and it gets hit with ransomware.
Yeah.
And that ambulance gets diverted or that care gets disrupted. Now it's personal.
Especially in rural systems, right? Where the next hospital's 70 miles away.
Right.
And whatever it is that's going on in that ambulance, you may not be able to handle another 70 miles.
No, exactly. So I think it's good from putting something down, putting something out from Google and Microsoft, but it'd be great.
I mean, the devil's in the details, right? Yes. It's always good to see organizations say things like that. The pessimist in me says something like, puppies are free. except for the next 15 years when you have to. Yeah. So I wonder what that means. And I want to have the most optimistic possible expectation. But again, I'm also like, okay, well, so tell me more. Tell me, give me the details. So
the only disappointment,
the details.
The only thing I was disappointed in was they had this pronouncement, but this is unbelievable momentum going on with the public-private sector partnerships through the Health Sector Coordinating Council, through HHS 405D. Yeah, that was all silent. And why weren't more vendors given the opportunity to participate? Why didn't they go big? I didn't feel like they went big. I feel like they just went home.
Yeah. Yeah. The other part of this is, and you and I talk about this a lot. There's a lot of free stuff, literally free stuff.
Right.
That's available through the Health Sector Coordinating Council and 405B and all of that. Lots of free documentation, lots of, good advice and guidance. Now, the problem with that is that there's a lot of small hospitals out there who have 2 people in IT who are also doing supply chain and, 4 other things that even if it's free, they don't have the time to go read it and consume it and understand it and implement it and create a project around it. They just don't have time for that.
Right, right.
So the help they need it's more. And I think we have to figure out, because everything's connected to everything else literally now, the risk assumed by one organization is a risk that is imposed on everyone else that's connected to that organization.
Exactly.
And they need help. You should have to be this tall to ride the ride. But I don't know that's completely on you. There's other responsibilities from other organizations that should be there to help them get to that minimum bar to help keep everyone safer.
Yeah. And to your point, there are existing programs and artifacts that they could have drawn from to help them along. For example, you have the CPGs, right? So you could have taken the CPGs architecturally, built a set of guidance, a playbook, a set of services around that, which could have been provided by multiple vendors across the industry, including Sensinet. Like, I'm not, full disclosure, right? But CrowdStrike could have been in there and others, right? And you could have had this guidance that any rural hospital could take with the CPGs in mind and implement. And it just feels like it's loosely, it's a loose announcement with the 2 largest tech vendors, right? So, I mean, again, kudos to them for coming to the table, doing the right thing. I just think more folks should do that as well.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see that. Hopefully we'll get some details on this, and maybe it's the start of a bigger thing. Keep my fingers crossed.
Yeah, exactly. So 3 years from now, what does this look like? That's right. I'm gonna ask you to.
What does the healthcare industry cybersecurity challenge look like?
Pull out your crystal ball.
Wow, that's a really great question. I have both the optimist and pessimist in me that thinks about this. I hope that we have figured out a way to create an environment that is safer for patients and families and their data and their healthcare. I don't think that will be by building taller castle walls and deeper, wider moats and keeping the bad guys out, because we haven't really been able to do that. And now it's sort of proven over and over again that we can't do that. No matter how good we are at cybersecurity, they still get through. So I think the portion of the defenses that are built around resilience, right? We find them, we catch them quickly, we kill them off. And to the end users at our hospitals and to our patients and families, it's like nothing ever happened. We don't get to the ransomware is deployed and the system is down for 30 days version of what we're doing today. We can move that all left, way left over to just, we can catch them so quickly and get rid of them so quickly that they have virtually no impact on our systems, and we can keep doing the work because we're so dependent on the systems today. That is definitely the weak point.
Yeah.
So I hope that's where we get to. That's my goal. If we can get there, that would be amazing. That intentional resilience would be incredible.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. All right. Well, I could talk to you all day, as you know.
Same.
So at some point we have to end this. Any last words of wisdom or insight for listeners?
The thing that I would say, that I think I say every time that I talk to healthcare executives, and especially folks working in security, is thank you. I know how hard your job is. I honestly can say, I don't know how hard your job is today. I have a pretty good inkling. I see a lot. I work with a lot of you. I hear the stories, but I know that you have an incredibly difficult job, and I know your heart's in the right place, and I know you're doing it for the right reasons. So thank you. I personally appreciate it. And even though you may not get thank yous from a lot of people, there are a lot of people who really appreciate the work that you're doing. So keep doing it. I really do appreciate you.
That's great. Thank you, Drex. This is Ed Gaudet from the Risk Never Sleeps podcast. And if you're on the front lines delivering and protecting patient care, remember to stay vigilant because risk never sleeps.